Welcome to problem number 11 in the Harrington series. This time, we're playing as Phil Ivey, one of the most prestigious poker players in the world. We're in a tournament. The blinds are 200-400 with a 50-chip ante. We're up against Tony G, who's in the big blind. Here's the action. Under the gun folds. Under the gun +1 limps. The next two players fold. Now it's on you. You're Phil Ivey in the cutoff holding pocket fours. 4 of spades and 4 of diamonds. What do? A, fold. B, limp along. C, raise. And if you raise, how much? Pause the video, think it through, and when you're ready, hit play to continue. Welcome back. So as you can see, we're in the middle stage of the tournament. That means there's moderate ICM pressure. Not extreme, but it matters. And we're holding pocket fours. In theory, this is a hand you should mostly fold here and only occasionally limp behind to set mine, and only if the conditions are right. Remember, you flop a set roughly 12% of the time, so you need strong implied odds to justify continuing. Also, an early position limp at this stage of a tournament is often stronger than people think. Many players limp hands that can dominate small pairs, or hands that are comfortable playing a big pot, and sometimes they're even trapping, hoping you raise so they can re-raise or jam with hands like pocket aces, pocket kings, or ace king. Now in real life, Phil Ivey overlimps. The button overlimps as well. And the small blind calls too. So we now have 4 limpers in the pot. And then Tony G in the big blind raises to 2,700. This is actually about a 7x raise. UTG +1 folds. Back to you, Phil. What do? Well, looking at the ace solver analysis and recommendation, we can see that the play here is mostly a call. Why? Because you're actually getting a very good price, and you'll be playing in position. The button and the small blind only called as well. They didn't show extra strength by raising, and if they fold behind, you're going to the flop heads up with a pocket pair and position. In that scenario, ace solver estimates your equity at roughly 40 to 50%, assuming you end up heads up on the flop. Now here's what happened in real life. Phil Ivey does call, and as we anticipated, the button and the small blind fold. They showed weakness, and they get out of the way. So we are now heads up. The pot is 7,800. And we go to the flop. The flop comes. Ace of hearts, 5 of diamonds, 4 of clubs. Tony G in the big blind checks. Back to you. What do you do with your flopped set? Pause the video, think about it, and when you're ready, hit play to continue. Welcome back. So obviously you hit bottom set on the flop, you have a huge hand. The board is rainbow. Yes, there's the very unlikely 2-3 that makes a wheel straight, but because Tony G raised from the big blind, he's usually not doing that with 2-3. He's much more often showing up with high Broadway hands or pocket nines and up. Now, some players will check back here to set a trap. And yes, slow playing a set can be standard in some spots, but if you're Phil Ivey, you're not trying to be cute. You want to build the pot and you want to do it aggressively. That's also what the solver recommends, although it's a little more conservative than Phil Ivey. The solver likes a bet of around 40% of the pot, roughly 7 big blinds, because there is still a small chance you're up against something stronger. A set of aces is technically possible, even if it's rare. And if Tony G somehow has a set of 5s, then yes, you'd be behind with your set of 4s. But in the big blind, pocket 5s usually doesn't raise into 4 limpers very often, so that scenario is not common. So the solver and Phil Ivey agree. We need to bet to build the pot, and that's exactly what Phil Ivey did. He actually went bigger. He bet 5,000 chips. Now something interesting happens. Tony G in the big blind check raises to 15,000. That's 3 times Phil Ivey's bet. What do you do now? Pause the video, think about it, and when you're ready, hit play to continue. Welcome back. So let's review the situation. You have bottom set. The pot is now close to 30,000 chips, and you have about half of that left behind. You face a check raise to nearly your stack size. That means the stack to pot ratio is extremely low, around 0.6. In other words, this raise essentially commits your stack. At this point, you basically have 2 options. You could call, but that leaves you with a very shallow stack, roughly 2,000 chips behind. That's tiny relative to the pot, and it creates an awkward turn decision because you'll be almost all in anyway. And based on Tony G's line, the aggressive raise pre-flop and then the check raise on an ace-high flop, he's representing a range that often looks like ace-king, ace-queen, maybe ace-jack suited, and strong pairs. There's no flush draw on the board, so this is mostly about top pair, big kicker, or a strong made hand. Because the SPR is so low, the solver's recommendation is straightforward. Jam now. You don't want to call and be left with, 5 big blinds or less, and then have to deal with a forced decision on the turn anyway. The clean, optimal play is to go all in immediately. But in real life, Phil Ivey doesn't want to scare Tony G off just yet. He calls, planning to let Tony keep firing. The idea is that if Tony picks up something like a queen or a king on the turn, he may convince himself he has 2 pair and commit everything. And if a second ace comes, Tony improves to trips, but Phil improves to a full house. Either way, with this low SPR, the money is going in. So Phil Ivey calls, and the turn is a queen. On the turn, something surprising happens. Tony G checks. So what do you do here? Do you check back? Do you bet small? Or do you push all in? In most cases, the clean play is to shove all in. The SPR is so low that you don't need to get fancy. You want to get the money in while you're almost always ahead. But that's not what Phil Ivey did. He didn't shove, he actually bet small, just 2,000 chips. Tony G responds by shoving all in. Phil Ivey calls. Tony G shows ace of diamonds, king of hearts, just a pair of aces. And Phil Ivey wins with a set of 4s. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Harrington, the Workbook.